What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason and Joe here. Album of the week. This is where we review records submitted to us by our patrons over on Patreon. If you want us to review something, head over there. Check out our Patreon. This week we are reviewing the record from 1996 called Life is Sweet by Maria McKee. I have very little experience with Maria McKee. I checked out the Lone Justice record back when you had one of their records in your 1985 album of the year list. That's pretty much all I've ever heard of them. Um, so one little sampling of one album. I've heard none of her solo stuff. So yeah, pretty much all new for me.
I'm actually very familiar with Maria McKee's stuff. I had the Lone Justice album, my top five, 1985, a year I hate. So I don't know if it's really one of the top five, but it's a good album. They only had one more album, and they broke up. And Maria kind of just resurfaced solo. I really like her debut from 1989. I almost picked it for album of the week, actually, back when it was my turn. Mitchell Froom produced that one, and then she has another one from '93, which is good. You Got a Sin to Get Saved, which is produced by George Draculis, who did like the Black Crows and all that stuff. It's, Southern rock, a little country, a little Springsteen. And after, I guess it was '89 or '90, she had a big hit with Show Me Heaven, which went to number one from Days of Thunder soundtrack. So she moved to the UK. But she's a respected, highly respected songwriter. I've pretty much liked everything I've heard from her. And I've heard this album once before, but not for a little while. So this is kind of her weird, out of character album.
Yeah, like you said, this is her third solo album. I expected more of an Americana country type of thing from this record, and it is not really much of that at all. It is very much like an alt rock 90s thing. I hear PJ Harvey, Tori Amos, Tracy Bonham is probably the thing it reminds me the most of. Some of those names, if you watch our channel a lot, I'm not a big fan of some of those people that I just referenced there. And yeah, the vocals aren't killing it for me here. They're okay, and at times they're better than at other times. Sometimes they grate on me a little bit. The production on this record to me felt a little bit flat. It's a common thing for a lot of 90s records seem to like overcorrect from the 80s reverb obsession. So I feel like in the 90s a lot of stuff was like overly stripped back and overly dry. And I think you have that issue somewhat on this record. I think it's most noticeable on the second track, This Perfect Dress, which sounds really like kind of dinky. The snare sounds super small and like far away, and there's some very cool guitar sounds, but it could use some support underneath. The rest of the track is feeling really thin, and the guitars are just kind of dominating and loud. Absolute Barking Stars, I thought was pretty cool. Maybe my favorite on the record. Better singing. I enjoyed her vocals on that one a bit more. A little bit fuller with some strings coming in. What Else You Want to Know has some really cool guitar work as well. I'm Awake, nice string-laden ballad that erupts with some screaming guitar at points. But aside from that, not a ton of really strong choruses or like really memorable tunes. I didn't feel like they didn't draw me in very much. I didn't feel very connected to her vocally. So I don't know. The songwriting here to me was not standout. It was just okay. The production was kind of weak, and her voice just I don't feel much like personal connection with it. For me, the highlight of this record is the guitar playing. There's some great guitar work and some really cool guitar tones as well. I was trying to look for some credits. Maria McKee and David Nolte are the only credited guitar players I see. I imagine most of the like heavily distorted stuff is David Nolte, but could be her as well. I'm not sure. So for me, I'm feeling just kind of like a 3 star on this. Just the songs weren't pulling me in really, even though I enjoyed some of the guitar work.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, this probably wouldn't be the best place to start a Marie McKee listening experience because it is just completely different. I mean, Lone Justice was very much sort of fast, cowpunk, country rock kind of stuff. Their second album was it was pretty like Tom Petty-ish, I think is the best example. And then when she went solo, she kept a lot of that country influence, some of that Southern rock. There's a lot of horns and stuff on her second solo album. So this is a big just left turn for her. Very aggressive, angsty female alternative rock and roll from the mid 90s. I hear the people you mentioned. I also hear like Alanis Morissette, I think a lot, who had Jagged Little Pill in 95. I think she mined some of that kind of female rage and angst. I also hear a little bit of like Britpop and Suede, actually. And she did move to the UK, and it might just be the common influence of like David Bowie, particularly like Ziggy Stardust Bowie on a song, um, like Absolutely Barking Stars, and maybe a couple others. Um, I hear some like Pearl Jam too in the guitar tones and sounds a little later, especially on like the second half of the album. And I really like Maria McKee in general, so I like this album a good bit. It's probably I don't know if it's my least favorite thing that she had done up to this point. It's not quite, I don't know if it's really made for the male ear. It's a little more, I think, for angry females. So it doesn't really connect with me as much as some of the Americana stuff, the country rock stuff. But I think there's some good choruses and hooks. Scar Lover, Absolutely Barking Stars, I think is pretty hooky. I'm not listening. I think that's definitely like for most Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill energy one. Wailing, yelling, her voice is breaking. And I mean, she's always had a pretty powerful voice, but never quite over the top as she went on this album. But I think it's very melodic, the way she sings, a little theatricality to it as well, even while it's kind of going into overdrive. I like the orchestration a lot. Everybody has a definite vein of Britpop in it, which, I mean, she moved to the UK, so she was right in the middle of the Britpop kind of boom. So I imagine it snuck in there a little bit. Smarter sounds like Pearl Jam on guitar to me. And I think she does the guitar, most of the guitar playing. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe it was her. So that's an interesting kind of wrinkle into things. She also co-produced the album and arranged things. So she was trying to just like do her thing, and I think it worked pretty well. I like everything on here. I could maybe use. I think the second half could use a little bit more energy at times. There's like a lot of long open stretches where not a lot happens, and then you get like these crashes of guitar that come in. But I think she's a very talented songwriter. I like her lyrics. I like her melodies. I think this is good. It's not where I'd start with Maria McKee, and it might be my least favorite thing that she had done up to this point, but I'm still at a light 4 stars for this one.
All right. Well, yeah, props to her if that is her on guitar. David Nolte, the other person credited with guitar playing, is listed as like multi-instrumental. I think it lists bass first. So yeah, maybe it is her. Kind of reminded me a lot of like later 2000s guitar tones. I hear like Blake Mills and that kind of sound with the guitars on this record, which was cool to hear. All right, let us know what you think of it. Maybe I'll have to go back and check out some earlier stuff. Sounds like that stuff would be more in my wheelhouse. But thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Check the video description for links to Patreon merch and social media stuff, and we will see you in the next one.